Welcome back to Season 6 of the Group Practice Accelerator podcast, brought to you by Polaris Healthcare Partners, where we leverage decades of healthcare and business experience to drive growth in successful group practices just like yours. If you're a healthcare entrepreneur and you're interested in building, scaling, or exiting your group practice, you've found not only the industry's leading resource for business education, but a team of trusted advisors dedicated to helping you achieve and exceed your goals. In short, the team at Polaris creates clarity, confidence, and results. I'm your host, Jamie Falash, and the Group Practice Accelerator podcast is on the air. Well, hey everyone, thanks for joining me again this week. Wow, this quarter has flown right by, and I wanted to come on today and talk through something that we've touched on in a couple of shows this year, but we really haven't devoted time to an in-depth look. And that's ownership and should you partner? We get a lot of questions about this, so I really want to address it here today. And there are a lot of ways to do that, obviously. And we know from the data that new docs are simply not becoming partners in the early part of their careers like they used to, meaning that ownership is coming later, according to the latest ADA Health Policy Institute report. We do follow those, and I recommend that you take a look at them to stay up to date as well. You know, new docs have massive student loan debt, car loans, mortgages, and just, life undoubtedly contributes to that. But what it doesn't mean is that doctors don't want to be owners. They do. So we always need to keep that in mind when we're interpreting the data, right? And when we think about ownership and whether or not you should offer partnership, you have to ask yourself some deeper questions. And none of those questions have really quick answers. They are thought provoking, and you need to sit down and really take the time to consider them because they involve consideration of how you want your legacy and your succession plan to play out. So, when we're thinking about what we want, that legacy and succession plan, regardless of how that might look, we first have to define a strategy, don't we? So, to help us walk through those deeper questions and some strategy today is my colleague Mark Flock, Polaris Partnership and Equity Solutions Executive, who prompted this whole conversation with a recent LinkedIn post that brought up some really thought provoking considerations that we need to dive into today. So, Mark, welcome back to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me back, Jamie.
So, your LinkedIn post, we got some docs asking questions.
That's
So,
what it's there for, though. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. And we're happy to be a resource as always, 6 years running. But why don't we get into some of the questions that you posted on LinkedIn? And, if you want to see that post, go to Mark's profile and you can find it in his post. But we'll walk through the questions that he posed there. But why don't we set that up, Mark? What kind of prompted you to put this post out there?
Yeah, Jamie. And a lot of people, obviously, they come to me for partnership situations, regardless of who they are. They're maybe 3 years in advance, they're 3 months after the fact, after losing someone.
Yeah.
They're building a group and they're struggling along the way, and they have doctors asking for partnership, and they're just not sure, do I want to do this? They used to being the leader of their ship, of their own ship, and not having partners. So, I mean, just to be clear, I'm not pro partnership in all situations to solve all problems.
Yeah.
That is a recipe for disaster, but they can be instrumental in allowing, the principal owners to achieve the results that they're looking to obtain long term if it makes sense. And that's why I kind of pose some of these questions in my LinkedIn article, because a lot of it depends. You may be wanting to achieve higher results and get to 20-30 million dollars in revenue, and you don't want to offer partnership, and you're black and white on it. That's fine. It might be a difficult road, but that's the road that you want to go down. That's perfectly fine. It's just there's other aspects that might be more difficult than bringing partners on and allowing them to help you get there, and creating an army behind you versus just going it alone as a soldier. So yeah.
Yeah. And you mentioned in this article, the question isn't should I partner? It's there are a bunch of layered questions that come before that. So why don't we start with your first one, which is what am I solving for? Again, none of these are real quick answers. Like this is thought provoking and part of your strategic plan. So we'll lead off with that one.
Yeah, that can be a lot of different things. I've heard, I mean, 3 handfuls of different things, and there's no wrong answer here. If you're thinking about, "Should I have a partner? Should I bring on a partner?" You need to ask yourself, "What am I solving for? Am I solving for attrition, that you've experienced? Doctors have left, or
Mhm.
If you're a larger group and you have a C suite of business individuals and they've constantly turned over, so you're trying to solve for attrition. Are you trying to solve for the ability to attract key high performing doctors or once again executive members and try to retain them for the long haul as you scale and grow? Are you trying to solve for growth? In the case, I'm only one man or woman. I can only do so much, especially if
Yeah.
you have multiple locations. So, and other ones, are you trying to prepare for like retirement? Or
Yeah.
and you should be preparing well in advance. So partnership could be that. And one of my questions later on, if I remember right, I'm sure we'll get to it, Jamie, is
Yeah.
kind of talking about that. And another good one I hear often too is, are you trying to scale back from the chair? I hear a lot of doctors getting burned out. I've had many clients getting burned out. They finally got back to maybe 3 days a week. Now they're back to five because they lost two doctors and they're trying to just
Mhm.
keep the business afloat.
Yeah.
Or you're just looking for help from the day-to-day operations. That could be partners can be great as long as alignment and vision and everything is all in sync there. Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of different answers to that question. And again,
Mhm.
it depends is the short answer, but we can help you figure out that it depends on, what your plan is, because that is something that you need to know. You need to have your strategy at least solve for that first before you can answer this question. So, next question. What structure secures my legacy?
Yeah, that's a great one, and once again, all these questions, I don't mean to ask them in this way, but they create a lot of rabbit holes, and
Yeah.
Uh, that's on purpose because there's not a right or wrong answer, and they're dependent upon you and your situation and where you are today and where you're going and what you're comfortable with. So, I think you'd ask what structure secures my legacy. So there's many options here. Some are a lot more flexible in what you can offer and how you can offer them to others. It depends on your legal structure that you have, depends on where you envision the business is going, where you are today. What type of moment are you trying to create with respect to your legacy? Is it a transition? Is it a brand? There's a lot of different things you can kind of ask underneath that hood. And it's something that you constantly need to evaluate, before you even offer a partnership conversation, before you even speak to doctors about it, and before you offer numbers and cents and percentages or anything like that. Because you want to make sure these individuals that you're allowing to come in also are in line with what you plan to build from a legacy perspective. So if they're
Yeah.
not aligned and your business isn't structured appropriately and what you're offering doesn't isn't parallel to all of that, then you're going to create issues. Governance is another thing that you kind of have to plan for too. So if you're bringing all these
Mhm.
partners and you're getting into the operating agreement at this point in time and voting and distributions and equity and exit planning and everything like that. You got to plan for that because things will change either for you or for them along the way, and you have to be prepared for that. If not, that's where something with your legacy could, you could have a crutch for a couple of years, unfortunately, until you rebound. But if you plan ahead and you build everything out and you have it structured appropriately, everything can be extremely beneficial and successful for you to get to that legacy defining moment. Yeah.
Yeah, and we know structure matters almost more than anything else because you can't build a strategy until you have a structure. So,
Mhm.
yeah, thank you. And again, we could go down rabbit holes for
Yeah.
hours here today on all of this, but we want to get people thinking um, about their particular situation because we know that everyone's is different. There is no one size fits all for any one of these, and you're all going to answer it differently. So take some time to think about each of these questions. Like I said, you can go back and find the exact questions in Mark's post. In fact, I'll copy these to the show notes too, so you have access to them. Now, your
Yeah.
next question, I need some help with. What partner amplifies what I've built? Help me understand that one.
Yeah, this is maybe a little more something personal to me, and some of you may laugh when I say this. So I do not recommend offering partnership as a participation trophy, and I say that
Okay.
in a jokingly way,
Favorite.
just because you have doctors. Well, society the way it is. I hate to say it, it's things have changed in the last 15 years compared to when I was growing up with respect to that. So just because you have doctors or staff that show up, do a decent job, I'd say do the job that they're expected to do as an employee, doesn't mean that they should immediately be offered partnership. it's a big deal regardless of the amount, like percentage, dollar amount for that matter. Even more so for the larger amounts when it comes to like voting parameters, distributions, as well as the wealth generation that you're going to create over time. If you have a business that's say $10 million a day and it's going to be $30 million tomorrow at some point in time. So it needs to be strategic. And you have to, once again, going back to the legacy defining moment, you have to have people that are aligned with that vision and then once again amplifies what you've built or what you plan on building. How will they exemplify or amplify that vision you have already created for the business and you have successfully implemented to this point in time? I personally don't think equity should just be given to anyone, for that matter, because it's got to mean something. It's a big deal. Like I said before, it's got to either be earned or purchased, in my opinion. And I've been firm with that for the last how many years. I've been doing this. And you have to, look at these individuals. Do they provide value as partners, or are they better off just continuing on as an employee? There's no wrong
Hmm.
answer. But if there's no
Yeah.
value add, that's being brought to the table, why are they be allowing to become a partner? If they're just going to be on your cap table, it's not going to change your life whatsoever, other than you're going to now have less in distributions. You now have someone that's voting in there that could change things based on how your operating agreement's set up. Someone who's maybe not agreed with you and your vision and mission all throughout the business and is pushed back, and now you're going to allow them to be partners? Or are they already stewards of what you've created thus far and will carry that torch moving for you? And I think, it's there's a lot of different ways I can go down with that question, but you have to kind of ask yourself that, and they should be proud of what they've done with you for you to this point too. And
Yeah.
see that as an opportunity. If there's no defining moment between the two of you, is like, yes, this is perfect, it's great, we're on the same page, then why are you even offering it?
Yeah.
I'll
You
go back
want
to the initial
somebody that,
question. Why should I offer it? And it's you're
yeah.
kind of back to square one.
Now that's a good point. It all comes full circle. And no, we don't reward mediocrity. Showing up is not enough to get you a trophy. And I'm not even going to start on participation trophies. We don't have time for that, Mark. But we
So
did
sorry if I
just
hit the
talk
nerve on a
about.
few people there on that one, but it's very like partnership should not be a participation trophy, in my opinion,
Oh,
whatsoever.
thank you. That's an
Yeah.
excellent point. Thank you for bringing that up because didn't we just talk about this on a podcast with Morgan Pace from ETS Recruit? Like, we're not trying to put a warm body in the seat. You want somebody that is going to hit the gas pedal for your business. And even my podcast with John Fidler, the executive recruiting side, you want somebody to come in there and just light it on fire in all the right ways.
And
So, yeah.
it doesn't have to be from a production standpoint or, their clinical capabilities. Yes, that could
Yeah.
absolutely be one of them. But it could be from a leadership perspective. It could be from a
Sure.
business perspective. It could be from a relationship building referral networks, especially if you're fee for service and you're a specialist. So there's a lot of different things that a partner, depending on the level they're coming in at, that can help, amplify the situation.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so I'm going to go on to your fifth question here. Fourth question, sorry. How do I protect what I'm continuing to build? Good question.
Yeah, so this one, I actually made a comment earlier. I think I said with something about rowing in the same ship, and
Yeah.
this is where I think, by adding partners who are aligned, and I want to reiterate the word aligned, with your mission, your values, your strategy, then you now have an army, or I guess if you're rowing, I guess Navy in that case, versus just yourself. And I think that that's important, because once again, you may be able to get there quicker or faster or more efficiently if you have multiple people working together versus by yourself.
Yeah,
Now,
and I want
you
to
have
point out here,
you go ahead.
Mark, that
Yeah.
these are not followers. These are not
Yes.
followers. These are not yes people that will do whatever
These
you
are
tell them
leaders.
blindly,
Yes.
right? These are
Yep.
leaders and contributors. And like Nan and I were talking on a just last week's podcast, you want people that feel comfortable contributing, right? For the betterment of your business, not just, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, whatever it might be to the strategy that you have in place. Maybe there's something that's a detriment to your business. So by protecting it, you have to also be able to listen.
Mhm.
Just my 2 cents.
No, no, that's great. That's a great point, Jamie. And if you have motivated individuals that are partners in a business, they can continue on carrying the torch. I like that one. We just got done with the Olympics. So carry on the torch as you're looking to maybe phase back from the chair and you want to take on a different role like in the business, uh and just things like that. So it's like now you have all people working together and they're taking on different aspects of the business. So you're working, on the business versus knee deep in it all the time,
Mhm.
and that's important. But without that alignment and the proper structure and people all pushing together, it will create friction if you don't have the right partners and you're just adding people back to that participation trophy. If you're just bringing on people just to bring on people, with no strategy associated with it, that could also create friction. So I want to be
Yeah,
clear that it's not a end all be all and a positive thing for every situation. You got to be strategic in how you do that. So there's a lot of
yeah,
different rabbit holes I
absolutely.
could go down with continuing to build and there's a lot of different factors that also go into it as well. Yeah.
Yeah, another episode. We'll do that
Yeah.
separately. Okay, last question. How can I plan for an exit or retirement? That's a
Yeah,
strong partnership consideration.
that's a whole episode probably right there, that I
Oh,
could
yeah.
spend, but I'll
Yeah.
I'll try to be kinda clear maybe from 2 different perspectives, because a lot of my clients I work with, they're very clear, "Hey, I don't wanna sell to a DSO or private equity firm." Perfectly fine. Or they see that they're strategically looking to exit maybe 1 to 2 years or maybe 10 to 15 or 25 years, I don't know. So, creating partners in your business or having a partnership track, if it's planned and proactive well in advance of an exit, can allow for a smooth transition, whether it's external, internal, or doctor to doctor for that matter.
Yeah.
Whether it's a strategic, DSO, private equity firm, or even partners internally, it helps to ease the next stage of your life as a principal owner what you built. And it's much better and creates numerous options for you versus forced ones. I think that's
Yeah.
going to be clear on that. So if you don't plan ahead and you say, hey, I'm looking to maybe sell my business in 6 months, and you have no strategy, you didn't prepare for that over the last maybe 5 to 10 years, I hate to say,
Yeah.
you're really forced into a limited set of options. If you
Oh,
plan
sure.
ahead and you have partners, ultimately this gives you a Rolodex of options. And I think
Yeah.
this is the smoother your transition can be and the more planned it is, the better off for you. So, for example, and I've told many clients this because they say, "Hey, I don't want to sell externally to anyone." Perfectly fine. But here, I'll kind of maybe give an example, and I've walked through this, and it's just a hypothetical, but it's also been realistic in a lot of situations. If you have partners already that say maybe equate on the cap table to 30% of your overall business, there's 30% of your business. Maybe there's 5 partners that own 6%, just throwing out an arbitrary number, and then you're the other 70%. It's much easier for a bank or a financial institution to finance 70% of the value of your business to those individuals who are already partners in the business. They already understand the operations. They're leaders in the practice or group, and they're already working on the production, so seeing patients, patient transitions, little to none, if anything, and they're only
Mhm.
financing 70% versus 100%. So it's less
Yeah.
risky for that financial institution and more likely that your buyers, or your really minority partners can get financing. So
Yeah.
once again, if you set up appropriately versus trying to go 100%, starts to limit your options. Banks might not be able to finance 100% because you're asking for north of 100% of revenues based on what you built. You're not going to get the private equity money or potential DSO money by doing so. And oh, by the way, your business is selling for $10 million at 100% value. Let's just say
Yeah.
it's really hard for a bank to say I'm going to give 100% of the value to these 3 partners and not partners, three doctors in the business that have a huge transitional risk. I'm not willing to do that. So now you're kind of limited with the bank and finance. That's something that can be kind of scary for me as a seller at some point in time. If you really want to maximize it too, same thing, having partners, if you do sell externally, so on the other side of the pond, if you're selling to like a strategic DSO or private equity firm, having partners coming along for the transition that are benefiting from the transition and basically, moving their contracts over and receiving that payday, which could be much higher than a doctor to doctor transition from a
Mhm.
from a dollar perspective. It allows for a smoother transition. I've said transition a lot so far, but it allows for a smoother transition post sale, which means less risk for them. So
Yeah.
if the majority of their key providers and you have owners in the business are all coming along because they're partners in the business and they're all benefiting from it, well, that's less risk for your buyer. Less risk for your buyer means more inclined to make an offer, more inclined to make a better offer, to you at the end of the day. So that creates value for them, and it creates less of a concern of what's the business going to look like tomorrow. Same thing, smooth transition, clean books, continued growth, both at the group level, but also on a location level, and strong leadership amongst your partners is valuable to them and is worth
Yeah,
paying
for
more
sure.
in more cases than not, just to name a few. So, like I said, you're creating certainty versus uncertainty, and that warrants a higher offer typically.
Yeah, certainty and stability equal dollars in a
Mhm.
nutshell. And, we can't underestimate the value of having a good exit plan because you're going to exit eventually, regardless of who you are and regardless of how you choose that to happen. But in any case, Mark, thanks for going through all this with us today. That was a really thought provoking LinkedIn post. So I'm glad we had a few minutes to jump on and kind of provide a little context and clarity to those questions. So thank you again.
Absolutely. And Jamie, if anyone listening has a situation was like, man, he just said this and it kind of struck a nerve, or hey, this seemed really, I'm a little confused in this area. I feel like it pertains to me. Just reach out. I'm more than happy to
Yeah.
have a 30-minute conversation with you and just say, hey, this is kind of what I would see and how I would look at it. Just so I can help you as you plan accordingly. And if it means working with us, great. If not, at least point you in the right direction so you don't make a mistake. That's kind of my goal in life, and obviously in what I do, and for all the clients I work with. So yeah,
Yeah, for
I'm
sure.
open to that conversation.
Yeah, for sure. And to our audience, we really appreciate that you all support us by subscribing to the podcast. And we love these questions that you send us and the little notes and thought provoking things that we come back to you with content on. So keep them coming and we'll keep delivering for you. And as always, if you want to learn about any of our Polaris expert advisory services, or maybe there's a topic we haven't covered yet that you'd like to hear about, send us an email to info@polarishealthcarepartners.com. And be sure to visit our website at polarishealthcarepartners.com, where you'll find weekly articles to grow and support your business, along with access to all podcast episodes, events, and a lot more. And you can go up to that Contact Us button and submit your inquiry there, and one of us will get right back to you. And if you have questions for Mark, he'll get back to you as well. So thanks so much for being a loyal listener and subscriber. If you enjoyed today's episode, please share it with a colleague and be sure to leave us a rating on any of your favorite podcast platforms. We'll see you on the next episode of the Group Practice Accelerator Podcast.